Good afternoon, family. Well, actually, I've been I've been practicing all this week to not say or to say good afternoon rather because I'm in Detroit, so it's almost evening. It's a beautiful day here in Detroit. My Detroit Tigers just completed a sweep of the Texas Rangers, so I'm in good spirits and glad to be here with you all today for Edutainment, Art, and Culture Showcase. Finding your artistic voice, expressing your culture as an artivist. This is an important piece because art is such visual art is such an underrepresented or underappreciated, in my opinion, anyway, uh, part of the revolution. So many revolutionary pieces of art, visual art, have so many important places throughout the history of revolutions all over the world. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time talking about that. But what I do want to do is introduce our guests because I want to get right into working it out. So the bios are on some paperwork that you have, but I'm going to introduce Grace Washington. You're not here to see me, but you can read my bio later. But Grace Washington, I'm going to read this because I don't want to miss anything. She is a painter, teaching artist. She started with Arts Impact in 2015 as an artist mentor. Then in 2020 became a program manager. Her previous position, excuse me, at Celerista at interim director. I'm sorry, an interim director at Origio's inspired preschool. And in her current role, Grace works with teachers in infusing the arts into each child's learning. In 2017, Grace collaborated with 397 Northeast Tacoma elementary students on a diversity project called Together We Rise. Grace has a bachelor's degree in child and family development and is a graduate of Washington State Teaching Artist Training Lab. Grace believes that the arts complete a child's education. Grace, did I hit everything?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
So,
So my other screen is actually, as we were preparing, was showing your hand, working on your art piece, which is amazing to me for you to just be sitting here so casually and able to work on that piece in that way. That's an incredible talent to me. It really truly is.
thank you. It calms me.
It, understood, understood. So let's see what do we have that's outside of your bio here, in terms of questions. What's something that you would want people to know about you? Something that that's important that contributes to your story. What's your story?
Um, well, I've always had like really good eye-hand coordination. So I've always been good at putting down what I see on paper or canvas. I started doing art really young, but my viewpoint of art is I believe everybody is artistic. I think all people are creative. I think that a lot of times we reach a certain age where we start separating it. So into two different groups, the creative group and the not creative. And if we think of, okay, for instance, my mom, she sewed. She was not a professional seamstress. Um, I think she could have been, but art was in everything. So in what she sewed, my grandma, my aunt, my grandma's garden was this beautiful, like collaboration of colors and textures.
So
Music.
that's very much a work of art.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So music, food, I think even I had a couple of aunties who owned corner stores in Philadelphia. So, and just how you think of doing things business, whether it's math or relating to people, depending on what you're doing, you've got to be creative.
Yeah.
So creativity is in everything that we do.
And I feel the same way about my work. I mean, anytime you want people to listen to you, you have to find creative ways to reach people. And I like the way that you frame that because in that way, everything that we all do is art. My wife has been a teacher for 25 years, and there certainly is an art to being an elementary school teacher that I have not mastered. I have the utmost respect for folks who on the daily deal with kids that young. So yeah, I love the way that you frame that everyone is an artist, and that everything that we do is art. Um, how does social justice like mix with your work? So for you, uh, uh, so from someone in the chat from Tasha, she commented that this painting in the background is fire. So Tasha, while we were actually having our meetings leading up to this to kind of prep for the show, everybody said the same thing. Everybody absolutely fell in love with that painting. So we are all in agreement that painting is absolute fire. So yeah, so what influence does social justice have on your artwork?
Mhm. Well, for my art, I divide it up into three categories, and I'm going to add a fourth. I look at things that are important to me, that inspire me, that are part of my foundation growing up, and also, honestly, things that have helped me make sense of the world around me. So, music, inspirational pieces. We didn't go to church real little. That was more when I was a teenager, but my aunt would come and pick us up. And I always saw her church was like a Broadway show. So with the singing, the dancing, the music, I was in awe. It inspired me. My historical pieces, those are near and dear to me. There's an artist, his name is Charles White. He passed in 1979, and he would do these beautiful paintings and drawings of Black sharecroppers.
Mm.
Now, with his people, whether it was male or female, they had large arms, large hands, they were muscular, but he showed like a gentleness, when they interacted with their children, with their spouse, with their loved ones. And I always saw the beauty in the African American people. So, whereas our strength, our resilience, I did a piece called 233 Years, which is basically 233 years from slavery, the start of this country, to the White House. Okay.
Wow.
That's 9 generations. How many
Yeah.
people can say that?
Yeah.
So our
Yeah.
resilience and our strength, that inspires me. How we look, that inspires me.
We got a super important question in the chat. Grace would like, or I'm sorry, somebody would like to know where we can purchase your work.
I have a website. It's graceawashington.com.
We do it for the culture, but we also need to be compensated for our work, right? and also get our work, in front of people's eyes. And make sure I've got some art hanging in my house from a young local artist named William Phillips, and the pieces are in my wife's work area. So whenever she's on meetings or whatever, she always makes sure it's placed right there behind her. And she gets, inquiries all evening about who did the artwork and so on and so forth. So, I'm all about pushing that artwork.
Thank you.
So, how do you inspire or educate others? What Yeah. So what is it that you encourage people to look at in themselves to kind of bring the art out of them? Like you stated earlier that everyone is an artist. So what do you do to encourage folks to bring that artist out of themselves?
Well, I'm also a teaching artist, whereas I use my art and we infuse it in the core subjects: science, English, math, social studies. And whether I'm teaching someone the fine arts or as a part of their learning experience, I always tell people you have to be authentic to yourself. So, what is your voice? So, and to be authentic, I think you have to be brave. So, because like you said, as far as selling art, that's one thing. And that might be something completely different than being authentic to yourself. Okay. I look at it, for me to be authentic, I have had art shows where I've sold nothing at all. And I walked away feeling like I was a failure, that I was not talented. And I had to snap myself out of that really fast. So I just had to start looking at that wasn't my audience. Those weren't my work, did not speak to those people. That has
Right.
nothing to do with who I am or what I've done. So, and I've had other shows where, I mean, I've sold everything I displayed. Then that's another mind shift that I had to be
Mm-hmm.
wary of, because what I do as an artist, that's a small part of me. That's how I communicate to the world. That is not all of me. And if I look at my art and base my value of my art and myself off of sales, then I'm giving that power to somebody else.
Yeah,
So that's not what I want to do. So
absolutely.
yeah, so even if for me to stay true to my voice, even if I have to go out and be a cashier to stay true to my art form, I
Mm-hmm.
would encourage people to do that.
That's interesting. And I actually was in a training earlier today, and there was a sister on there who was talking about that very thing about pursuing your passion. And there was a gentleman she happened to start a conversation with who was a cashier at the dollar store. But as she continued to talk with him, this man has a master's in early childhood development. His passion is working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's doing what he has to do to cultivate that passion, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
working at the dollar store or, teaching at somebody's school. But to your point, in terms of identifying and working on that passion, I think that's something that not enough of us take the time to do. Um, and I also wanted to touch on, you talked about having art shows and not selling anything. I'm a big sports guy. I used to play football and coach football and all that kind of stuff. And we
Mm-hmm.
used to tell guys, you got to have a short memory. Whether you had a good play or a bad play, have a short memory because it's about the next play. And that's something that really carries me through life, quite honestly. It's something, I don't get too high or get too low.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I took from what you had to say in that piece there.
Yeah.
What or who has helped you realize your dreams as an artist? I mean, you spoke about, the influence of church when you were younger.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any specific people who, who've kind of mentored you or kind of given you that push that we all need to to pursue our real passions?
Mm-hmm. Well, I grew up on the East Coast and I've lived all over the country. So as a child and also as an adult. Um, when I moved to California, I was 12 and I started studying under an artist named Angie Whitson. So
Mhm.
she was a huge encouragement for me. So I was one of those shy kids who would rather be in the background drawing. Um, yeah, she had me by the time I was, gosh, right before I turned 13, she had me competing in art shows where I was the only child.
Yeah,
So I was competing against adults. And she basically did that to encourage me to get out of my shell more.
yeah,
So it was more a personal growth experience.
okay.
So when
So
I'm
she identifies some talent in you that you may not have quite identified to that degree anyway.
mhm. Well, when I first met her, I was in a group of other young teens. So within the class, and she took my mom aside, pulled me out of the class, and started giving me private lessons for the same cost because she would ask me questions. Why did I do this or that? And like I said, it was always something I could always do. I
Hmm.
just didn't know why. So, and
Yeah,
she wanted me to be aware of what I did. So to help me
yeah.
grow even more. So
Definitely. And
yeah.
finding your why is always important too. And anybody that can, can push you into that is certainly a huge inspiration.
Yeah.
Um, what other artists or communities have you collaborated with to create art and other cultural expression?
Mhm. Well, you mentioned it in my bio. I think the one I'm most proud of is the three paintings I did with 397 elementary kids. So that
It's a
was,
lot of kids, a
yeah,
lot of
it was,
elementary kids.
yeah, it was a labor of love. So the
Certainly,
absolute
certainly.
love.
May the Creator bless you for doing that.
Yeah, we did it. The piece was so popular. The Tacoma Art Museum, which I live in Tacoma, Washington, they showed the piece. They displayed it for 3 months that summer.
Mm.
So, and for our opening, to have all these little kids come up, and the piece was about diversity. So there was another teacher who worked with the students. She had them write poems, stories. They talked to their parents and found out their stories. I mean, it went really deep. They did self-portraits. Everything was displayed at the museum, and the kids showed up. You would have thought that they were having their own one-person show. They were so proud.
I can only imagine because as an adult, if I were part of something like that, and I showed up to an event, and my work was being highlighted, I would be happy about it. So I can only imagine the glee of an elementary school kid. Well, actually, my son is headed to middle school, but I've got a couple of elementary school kids in my house, and I know how they would react to, going to the local museum and seeing something that they worked on,
Mhm,
actually, hanging in the house or in
mhm,
the venue
mhm.
rather.
Yeah, and it was inclusive. I mean, everyone. So participated. And then I just found ways where there are some kids who had um, challenges, physical challenges. So
Hmm.
then I just found other ways to get them the material that they felt comfortable with to
Hmm.
incorporate it into the piece.
So Juanita in the chat says that she's got a gallery in her house. I do too, but most of mine is created by a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. So I love it nonetheless. But she said that she met Charles White, so she
Mhm,
wanted to drop that in. So yeah, I have a house full of art. My kids are both uh, very artistic. My son in particular, and then my daughter is right behind him. So they're always creating something, and so our house is adorned with all of their final products. So we
mhm.
encourage that sort of thing. Um, what additional support will help you and your fellow artists in pursuing your passions, particularly as it relates to social justice?
Mhm. I think that's different for everybody. For me, it's education. So I work for a company called Arts Impact, and we work with visual artists like myself, theater, dance. We're just starting a media portion, and music. We'll be bringing in voice. And like I said, we go into the schools. We work a lot with Title I schools, the low income schools, and we infuse the arts with science, math. We keep it culturally grounded. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just giving these kids who may not have that opportunity. And I started out inner city Philadelphia.
Okay.
So I didn't get to go to a museum until, my goodness, I think I was like 13 years old. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I went to really my first play as an adult, first professional
Okay.
play.
Yeah.
So, we include all of these in so that pre-K through elementary, and we also have middle school programs, they have these opportunities. So, and I think that that's giving them their voice, giving them a holistic education, because again, I believe you cannot separate the arts out of your life. So, and
Absolutely.
especially with education.
Yeah,
Um,
and you bring up you brought up a number of good points. But in terms of leaving the arts out of education, I was really kind of I don't know, I don't want to say disappointed, but disheartened with the whole STEM movement that had been going on for the last few years, because it did just that. It didn't focus on arts. And so
mhm,
now to see these programs, these STEAM programs popping
mhm,
up that have reinserted art, because there is an importance to it.
mhm,
And there is, even when we talk about STEM and STEM related fields, there is certainly an absolute correlation between creativity and also being able to do those kind of very hard logic concentrations like math and science. So
Mhm.
it's almost the glue kind of that brings everything together. So again, yeah, I was glad to see the A come back and it becomes STEAM as opposed to STEM.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally
so
agree.
yeah, it really is. Like I said, and I look at my kids and I look at at their own talent. Again, my kids are very artistic, but they're also very good with again those hard logic things like math and science. They're book smart, you know, as well. And so
Mhm.
for them to be able to utilize all of that and not have to leave the art part at home and only use the academic part at school and relative to their education is certainly important.
Mhm.
I would never want anyone to have their talents devalued, because
Mhm.
if that's what you're good at, if that's what you're really good at, but you've got somebody telling you that it's not really what we're doing. We're not worried about math. We're worried
Mhm.
about science and technology. So,
Mhm. But,
as a kid, what does that do to you?
yeah. But even math and art is, I mean, they're interlinked.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we look at what we want our kids to graduate with, to be successful.
Hmm.
So, the 21st century skills.
Yeah.
So, it's communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, growth mindset, or persistent. Those
Yeah.
are all things that artists do on a regular
Yeah.
basis. Honestly, scientists too. So these are what they do. And when we take them out of the school, take the art out,
Hmm.
we're left with teaching towards really the tests.
That's it. Yep.
So you can have a math problem and not everybody's going to solve it the same way. You have to have
Yeah.
those critical thinking skills. So, and a lot of people use those visual skills.
Zahir chimed in and said, "Math is art." Absolutely, Zahir. And when you talk about, so that's the thing, and that's something that we don't talk about in math. But I don't know how people think that these great mathematicians came up with all these formulas. They didn't
Mhm.
just pop up with them out of the air. They came with these different creative ways to arrive at a particular answer, and some of them became codified and became the way to do it, but some of them became just other ways to do it. At some point, the Pythagorean theorem was just a way to figure out a math problem, and now is immortalized in every math book in the world. So, but that was born of the creativity. Um,
Mhm.
well, I'm not going to credit Pythagoras for it because I know that's not where he got it from. But my point is um, that that hard theory was born of the same creativity that it takes to create the beautiful painting that's behind you and to create beautiful music and things of that nature. It's all born of the same sort of creative fire.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know if we have any other questions in the chat while you are you about ready to start your demonstration?
Um, if everyone is ready for me, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have any burning questions in the chat yet. Please, y'all don't be shy about talking in the chat. We're again, this is a family affair, so we definitely want this to be a very conversational piece we have. So, Grace, we're ready when you are.
Okay. I had asked everyone to get some oil pastels. So Crayola, I like Crayola. They know their colors. So with oil pastels, I started a piece, but I'm also gonna do just a few other demonstrations. You
And I'll
want
chime
to?
in as people drop things in the chat. Somebody said Detroit is the new black. Detroit been black, but Detroit is definitely the new black. We are in vogue. We are in fashion. Gritty city.
With oil pastels, you mix it right on the paper. So, and it's better to start with your lighter colors first, but you can still go over it. And
James in the chat was asking if you ever paint with acrylic. Is that a medium that
Um,
you use?
yes, I
Okay.
started out, once I started getting professional, I guess more traditional art classes. I started with oil paints. And honestly, I didn't really start using acrylic until I moved to Washington. So I found it took a lot longer for my oils to dry up here. So yes, I work in oil paints, acrylic. I work in gouache, colored pencil, pen and ink, charcoal, clay sculpture, wire sculpture.
Val in the chat says she can't get to your art demonstration because she's online shopping for your artwork. So
Oh,
someone asked if they could see if we're supposed to be able to see the demonstration. Now I can see it. It's up on my screen. I would hope that everyone can see the third screen where Grace is actually drawing here. So hopefully that's working out. So
so I do want to share one more thing about the programs that I work with. It's I want to talk about the kids. One of the programs, it's called Voices from the Field. And we work with, we're looking at systemic change within the schools. So we work primarily with the teacher, but our artists also go into the school and work with the students and the teacher in their classroom. So, and my programs are in urban areas, so Tacoma, Seattle, and other areas throughout Washington State, preschool up to elementary. My Voices from the
that's
Field.
definitely the field. Yeah, that's definitely the field. And when you and different words evoke different feelings from different people. As soon as you say that, I think battlefield. When we're talking about, urban school districts and school districts that where our marginalized and racialized students uh, attend school, they're absolutely battlefields. They are a struggle for intellectual fairness and where we have to fight to educate these babies. So yeah, it's definitely straight from the field.
Mm-hmm. And when we bring art in, we show them art from their local museums. We bring in artists of color to show
Mm-hmm.
them. We want their artwork to represent who they are also.
Yeah,
So,
I'm very intentional about the artwork in my house. My kids see reflections of they see mirrors and not windows. They see themselves on the wall
mhm,
and not, looking out at something that's unfamiliar to them.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that's how it should be. So,
Mm-hmm.
with my Voices from the Field, we work with children of migrant workers. They're middle school students. And honestly, some of these kids are also migrant workers.
Mm-hmm.
So, we bring in a lot of Latinx artists from all over the country and world. So, and
So that's incredible. So that's going to make me ask you a question that's a little bit off script, but I wasn't
okay.
expecting that. So what is it like working with children that are migrant workers, like kids that are where school is not their focus or art is not even their focus? They got to go to work. What is that? What is it like? Do you find yourself allowing them to or encouraging them to use it as an outlet, as a way of relaxation? Do you encourage them to use it as a way to creatively vent whatever frustration they might have about
Mhm.
whatever position they're in? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Mhm. Well, as far as like an emotional outlet, the
Mm-hmm.
schools have social emotional learning. So we will infuse the arts with that to give them an outlet for that. But also, I'm going to give you an awesome example with what the last year and a quarter of COVID and distance learning. Whenever our artists were on camera with the classrooms, there was more engagement, more
Mm-hmm.
kids showed up. Kids were willing to turn on their cameras, not all of them, but they
Mm-hmm.
engaged when there was art. And the way we do the art is I'm not a performing artist, but there's one
Mm-hmm.
lesson that I've just been just so impressed with. It's a dance lesson. And a Latinx artist and a classroom teacher wrote it. and the folklorial dancers where they have the skirts and stuff. It's a
Hmm.
math lesson talking about slopes. So, and
That see,
kids had
that's
to map
beautiful.
out how the slope of the skirt would fall.
Hmm.
So, and they were able to do it. So it's just, yeah.
That's an incredible way to connect uh, math with art. It really truly is. You mentioned about kids being more engaged in a virtual situation when art is involved, and if I'm being honest, I think it has a lot to do with your approach. If you are encouraging kids to understand that, hey, everybody is an artist, and in
Mm-hmm.
terms of art, this is a no judgment zone. Kids aren't afraid to be seen and let their art be seen, and things of that nature. So I think that's a great credit to you in the way that you approach art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even with the elementary schools, they would have these packets that the kids would have to go up and pick up their assignments or their parents and bring it home so that they would be prepared for virtual. Quite a few schools had issues with people weren't coming to pick up the packets. Well, when the
Mm-hmm.
teacher would announce, we're going to have art, they would come and pick up their packets.
Yeah,
So, and we
yeah.
always try and get the kids high quality art materials. So there's nothing worse than mixing colors, whereas you mix your
Yes.
orange and your yellow and it's mud.
Yes.
Okay. It doesn't matter what colors you mix, it's always going to be mud. So
So
we
and so
want,
that brings us back to the piece you're working on here. So you said that you actually mix the pastels on the paper.
yes.
So it's that so anytime you're color blending, you're doing it in the moment and not, trying to find some combination of colors to create what you want and then
Yes.
start putting it on the paper.
Yes. You with oil
Okay.
pastels, you mix it right on the paper. So,
Okay. Is
mhm.
that your preferred medium? What's your favorite
My all-time
medium?
favorite is oils. So I love
Okay.
my oil paints. I love the smell. I love the texture. I love oils. But I also tend to work very large. These are small pieces for me. I've got a
Oh,
number of
really?
pieces that are about 4 feet by 5 feet.
Wow. Okay.
So I've grown to love acrylics.
Okay.
So, but I use a lot of what molding paste with my acrylics
Hmm.
to add more texture to it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
And I
so
also
see,
love the classics, pen and ink and
yeah.
charcoal.
So yeah, when I was younger, I used to draw a lot, but I
Mhm.
never got past charcoal.
Mhm.
Partially because I was good at it, but it wasn't a passion of mine. And I found that as I got older, I stopped making time to do it, which
Mhm.
now I regret. I'm still pretty good if I picked up a pen or a pencil or even some charcoal, but
Mhm.
beyond that, I did not develop my skills further. Um, let's see. Someone asked James in the chat, "Do you need a liquid agent for oils to mix, or would that only be with acrylic?"
You can, usually with oils, I just use maybe like a paint thinner or turpentine, really just to clean my brushes. For my oil
Okay.
paints, if you get a high quality oil paint, you don't need anything extra.
Okay.
So, mhm.
All right. So we've got about 9 minutes. So what I would like to do, if it's fine with you, is for everybody else to be able to see what you're working on here.
If it's something I just started, so I don't.
Yeah, well, we want to see you work through it if you don't mind. So yeah.
Oh, okay. And chances are I will not finish it today.
Yeah, I don't think the expectation is to finish. Rosa said it already looks amazing. James said that it's beautiful in the chat. So yeah, I don't. The expectation is not that we finish it today, just to see some of your process. Rosa says she's got dibs when it's done.
So I would love to hear what inspires the audience.
Yeah, so you actually just took the words right out of my mouth. Somebody in Charles in the chat said it's important not to rush an art creation. True. And James said he has one last question. how did you figure out how to choose the colors to create darker skin tones? So I'm presuming he means while you have to mix your oil pastels, like 'cause since you have to mix them right on the paper.
Mhm. Well, on this one, I'm just going by what complexion I want. If we look at people, we have like, I don't know if your parents or anyone said that expression that for I had an uncle who's very, very dark skinned and he was like blue black, it's just that
Okay.
beautiful glow of blue right
Okay.
underneath. Some people have like a greenish tint, some more reddish. So I think
Okay.
it's just training your eye to see. And
Okay.
I also, for something like this, it's more about how I'm feeling. So
Okay.
what I want, like my first family in the background, I don't know if you can see it up close, but he's more of that blue black where she's got more red.
Right.
So,
So
and
we've
it,
got some folks. I'm sorry. Good. We've got some folks in the chat who are actually following along with their own pastels, their own utensils. So
okay.
um, yeah. So if you want to continue with that demonstration, um,
Mhm.
and maybe they can pick up some tips from you. So I don't know what everyone else out there is inspired by or what they're interested in drawing. You can drop stuff in the chat.
Mhm.
James said, "Thank you for answering all of his questions. Great
Oh,
explanation."
mhm. And you can also, with your pastels, you can also mix it with your finger. So I would not use a paper towel or anything. It will shred and get into your art. So, and if you could see, the more I mix it, the smoother it becomes. Now, if you can.
So I remember my young art days of working with oil pastels, um, and I do remember it's kind of starting to come back to me as I watch you working with it. It actually the smell is coming back, and they feel like a more oily crayon.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that you won't finish this piece while we're together, which is totally fine. But for a piece like this, that you from start to finish with oil pastel, what do you imagine the time that you spend from
For
start to finish?
maybe a couple of hours, it depends. And
Okay.
like I said, usually I don't do oil pastels to sell. They're not
Right.
on my website. I use
Okay.
that more as a teaching material.
Hmm.
With my oils, they take a while. I've done one painting, and it's one of my larger ones where I literally worked on it for 4 years. So I
Oh
just
wow. Okay.
keep coming back to it. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to take a break. And then I've done other pieces that I could envision it in my mind. So it
Hmm.
was easier for me to put it down. It wasn't something that I had to keep working through. So, do I want to express what I'm saying this way or that way?
Right.
So, it went a lot quicker. Pen and ink, I'm usually pretty fast with pen and ink.
Okay.
So, maybe a couple of hours tops. So,
Okay.
depending on the size of the piece. And charcoal is pretty quick too.
Okay. Gotcha. So for those following us with the demonstration who are sketching some things themselves, I'm looking at this side that you maybe haven't started coloring yet. So what did you start with in terms of a base? So I notice it's not black.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so I
started
imagine
with
that black
blue.
becomes a little too hard to
Mhm.
blend and kind of get rid of, I should say, once you want to complete the piece. It's a
Mhm.
bit heavy. So I'm sorry. What did you use for the base?
For the base, I started with blue.
Okay.
So usually for black, because it is a much stronger color, I will usually save that towards the end just to where I want an extremely high contrast, like in this area right here.
Okay.
So,
And is there a is there a thing that oil pastels work better for? Like is like for portraits or for still lifes, or is it a very flexible medium that you could use for whatever
It's a
whatever might be
flexible
on your mind?
medium. It's flexible. So I will use it with preschoolers
Hmm.
on up. I will also oil, you can also work with it with watercolor. It creates a
Okay.
resist and it's actually very beautiful.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, it's looking good. Hopefully, the folks that are out here with their pastels are mixing and sketching right along with you here. Yeah, this is definitely bringing back some. I might have to go out to the store and get a pack of pastels and have some
Good.
sketch paper. It's some years ago, a couple of years ago. My son did not know that I had this latent artistic talent in me, so we went down to the Detroit Institute of Arts one Sunday, and they opened up galleries for sketching. And the African gallery was open for sketching. So we were sitting there sketching all these African masks and all of that. And when I was done, he was blown away by what I had done. And to me, they weren't great because I'm considerably rusty, but he was just amazed because he had no idea that I draw anything. So it was it definitely got me back into doing a little more sketching. I'll sketch something now when I'm on a call or something, and I got some free time. I'll do stuff, but I still very rarely set aside time to do artwork.
Mhm. Yeah. When my oldest granddaughter was about, gosh, she was about 3, I was
Mm.
living right outside DC. So I took her over to the Smithsonian because they're all free. So I was going like
Of
every,
course.
and we bought our sketchbooks, we bought our materials to work with, went into one of the little gallery rooms, and I told her, okay, this is what artists do. We sit down and we sketch. She laid
Absolutely.
herself out in the middle of the room on the floor, got comfortable, took out all her supplies and started working. And
Yeah,
that's what I love about working with kids.
she
So,
felt at home. Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah. My son was very much the same way in the gallery. Uh, he was sprawled out on the bench, laying on his stomach like he was at home on the couch. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a very very similar thing here. So I think that we have reached our well, it's 5:15 here. So what is it? Our yes,
It's
the session has ended. All right. So all right. So Grace, I really want to thank you
Mhm.
for this because again, I know for me it has brought back some memories in terms of my childhood interest in art and kind of passion for art at that time. Your artwork is absolutely beautiful. Before we get out, do you want to drop your website one more time so that people can take a look? Got a lot of thank yous and love this. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for the love. It's all family here.
Okay, so I just put it in the chat. So
Perfect.
thank
So if you're
you.
looking for some beautiful artwork from somebody who was absolutely willing to share herself with us today, go check her out. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. And I hope everyone is using art as therapy and art as activism. So with that, thank you and good evening.
Mhm. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Thank you.